We're going to have a closer look at the Zastava M07 now, and we'll start by taking it out of its stock. Okay, I've already loosened the screws on this scope. This is a Zenit below-mo scope I've been using, and it's you can remove it from the rail and put it back on, and it's pretty much comes back dead on target. So we'll just take that off the rail first. We remove the bolt. We press the button, we remove the magazine. Okay, and it has it's fitted with a VersaPod on the front here, so we'll just slide that off. It's pretty conventional the way it comes apart. We've got a couple of screws underneath the trigger guard, a couple of Allen screws, which we can slack off here. Now when you're putting these back together, you should really do them up with a torque wrench, a torque screwdriver, to make sure you've got even torque on the action screws. But for purposes of this video, we'll just get it apart as quickly as we can. Now the trigger, we're going to get to the trigger. The trigger has a number of adjustments which we'll be having a look at. You can see it more easily once we get the rifle out of the stock. Okay, we take this out and you can see the trigger here. But now this rifle has a magazine release on the side. Now we have to, if we use an Allen key and we come around up through where the magazine is, we can push this piece out. And that allows us to get it out of the stock more easily, which is a bit tricky because of this magazine release piece here. Got to pop it out, that's it. Fits into this recess. Okay, so that's the stock. It's got a cross bolt to reinforce it. It's a wooden stock on this rifle, with a steel cross bolt there to reinforce it. So it's pretty conventional. There. Yeah, what I really wanted to look at was the trigger and the trigger adjustments, because as with most rifles, when you get it, the trigger is set fairly heavy, but it has the capability of being lightened off quite a lot. So the trigger here has the trigger lever itself has got a screw on the side. Now if you can get in on that, you can see we've got a screw here that allows you to move the trigger lever back and forth. Okay, and we've got an adjustment here at the front of the trigger and one at the back. Okay, so this one here at the back is the spring that's applying pressure to the trigger, and this one is the sear engagement. So if we had the bolt in there, right, and we activate it, we can see through this little window the amount of sear engagement that we have, and then that can be adjusted, right? So you can see that the trigger force can be lightened right off, and the sear engagement can be brought up. Of course, this needs to be done carefully, and that should only be done by a qualified gunsmith. But when you do get the rifle, you can find that the triggers are quite heavy. Now this is the mechanism here that releases the magazine, which is a little bit unusual. So the magazine, when it's sitting up there, it locks in at the front and back with this mechanism. So when you're pressing the button on the side of the stock, it's pushing in here and releasing the magazine out the bottom. If you have a look at the receiver, as we've got it out of the stock, you can see how massively strong it is. Inside here, the steel top of the receiver, like it's nearly like a centimetre thick. It's a very strong rifle, which is I suppose conducive to accuracy. Okay, in another part of the video we'll examine removing the bolt and taking the firing pin out, but we won't do that just at the moment. We take the bolt comes out. You see on this side of the receiver there's a button, so we press this button. When you pull it back, we press this button in, and that allows the removing of the bolt. The magazine itself is plastic, and I'm not a huge fan of plastic magazines, but this one does seem to be the exception because it's extremely smooth to use it. It's a really smooth magazine, and it appears to come apart easily. As I said, it latches at the front and rear, latches up into this mechanism. Let's just take it apart. We can push in a little pin here to should be able to slide this along. It's quite tight. There we go. So if we want to clean out the magazine, we can just dismantle it like so. Take out the follower. So it's actually a really good magazine, and it feeds really positively. One of the best I've seen. So it's very easy to take it apart, put it back together. As I said before, it's a bit tight at the moment, this magazine, pushing it in, but I have a feeling that it will loosen up, and I think that's probably because this mechanism has to be, when you push the magazine into it, it pushes it and latches it up. So it's got a spring at each end of it, so it takes a firm push, but once it's in, it's extremely well locked into position. So, okay, now we can easily put it back together again, assuming we've adjusted the trigger or had our gunsmith adjust the trigger to be as we wish. We can now reassemble the rifle, which is quite straightforward. Get the stock, push this side. The only tricky bit is this magazine release. At the moment you can see there's just a space here where this button goes in to allow you to release the magazine just by pressing on the side. It works quite well. Okay, so we put our trigger guard back in. So I said that once these screws are put back in, they really should be torqued with a torque wrench or torque screwdriver, because we want them to be nice and firm. You don't want the receiver to move at all in the stock. There isn't any glass bedding or anything around the receiver, which could be added if you wanted to, but it seems to fit real snug into the wood. So I haven't touched it because it shoots so well the way it is. Tighten those up. Okay, we can insert this button, just clips into the side there. Now our magazine latches in, like so. Simple. Slip our VersaPod back on the front, make it easier to hold. Our scope, our Belomo. This is a really solid mounting. It's never going to move once you put this on. So it doesn't take very long to take the rifle down, have a look inside, adjust the trigger or check, lubricate it if necessary. I mean, obviously you wouldn't do that very often, but we can tighten up the scope. This is a massively strong mounting on this thing. It's not going to move anywhere once that's tightened up. Okay, we put the bolt back in. Magazine, we're ready to go. So that's how we disassemble the rifle.